Hello and welcome to Doc to Me. My name is Heather.
And I'm Kathleen.
And this week we are covering Season 2 of Wild Crime, Murder in Yosemite on Hulu. Before we get into that, you can follow us on Twitter and or join our Facebook group. Info for that can be found in the show notes. If you would like to email us comments or suggestions or donate to us at PayPal, our email address is doctomepod@gmail.com. We appreciate any help, whether it's a way we can make this podcast better or just $1.
We look for recommendations anytime, so please tell us what to watch.
So we're not watching stuff that nobody cares to watch.
We pick some
Because it takes hours and hours for me to do this. We covered Season 1 of Wild Crime last October, Murder in the Rocky Mountains, and that was episode 21 for us.
Oh, wow.
We're like in the 60s at this point. And I really enjoyed that one, so I was excited to see they made a second season. It's nice to have a reminder once a year on why we should fear the woods.
Always. And not
Just
even
like
just
boats.
because of the creatures in them.
You don't go in the woods, you don't go on boats. Just like with the first season, this one can be found on Hulu. If you're outside of the U.S., it might be on Disney+.
Oh,
I think I saw somewhere, yeah. Well, because it's an ABC show, which is owned by Disney.
Yeah, that makes sense. What doesn't
Everything's
Disney
owned by,
own?
yeah. Next sentence. It's produced by ABC, which is owned by Disney, so it'll be on one of those apps. I'm sure you can figure it out, or just listen to us.
We'll tell you.
We'll save you
All you need to
3
know.
hours.
We watch them so you don't have to.
The first season featured Rocky Mountain National Park, and this one is Yosemite. So I wonder what the next season will be about. There's so many national parks.
There really are.
There's only 61 more to cover, so...
Wouldn't it be incredible if they had 63 seasons?
Oh my god, I'd love it. I'd cover every season.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I can't believe it's been a whole year between them.
I know. Let's talk a little bit about Yosemite National Park. She a big ol' bitch.
And there's a lot of crime there, too.
It is 759,620 acres, which is roughly the same size as the state of Rhode Island.
Holy shit! She big.
And shocker, we stole that land from the Native Americans.
What didn't we?
The word Yosemite came from the name the Miwok gave to the Awanichi people, who were an indigenous tribe driven out of the Yosemite Valley area. A common misconception is that Yosemite means grizzly bear, which I remember always hearing, but it actually means killer.
Oh, do they not mean the same thing?
I mean, yeah, really, but 70 years before the gold rush, the indigenous population was estimated to be 300,000, and once that gold rush hit, the population dropped to 150,000, and 10 years after that, about 50,000. Whoever was left was forced to relocate to a village constructed by the state in 1851, except they had to relocate several times after the villages were destroyed in 1906, 1929, and 1969.
God, could you imagine you have to keep moving?
Yeah.
What a pain in the ass. I hate moving.
Just because of the color of your skin. In 1969, the National Park Service evicted the remaining people from their residences and then destroyed the village as part of a firefighting exercise.
Oh, fun. Let's just
White
burn
people.
down my village. Totally cool.
We fucking suck. 1864, President Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant, which declared the area as federally preserved land, but it wasn't until 1890 when Congress established it as a national park, which of course led to the national park system. In 2021, Yosemite was the 21st most visited national park in the U.S. with 3.3 million people.
It's a very popular area.
Have you ever been?
I have not.
I haven't
would
either.
love to go.
You sure about that?
Well, I mean, I would love to go, but also, like I said, it's full of crime. A lot of people die there.
Yeah. Well, I like to look at the missing person in the national parks.
Yes.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah, I would literally never go hiking alone.
It's a lot of old
Ever.
people. Like, why are you out hiking?
You should be home knitting. God.
Just stay home. Now into our story. June 28th, 1983, Tom Day grew up visiting national parks, and so when he became an adult and had a family, he wanted his kids to experience that as well. What an asshole dad. They stop off at Summit Meadow to let the kids just kind of run free. However, don't do that now because I checked on the National Park Service website and the only regulation they have for Summit Meadow is to stay out of the meadow. It was the 80s. Anyway, Tom is walking with his friend's son when they stumble upon two bones. The kid, of course, starts poking around at the bones.
As most kids do.
And that's when they spot the hand.
Ugh.
Our first interviewee is a park ranger named Don, oh my gosh, Colo? I thought he said koala at first.
If only.
I think it was Coelho. Again, I watched this a month ago. He at first thought the family probably just came upon a bear paw, which, how fucking stupid are the people that he normally deals with?
Well, I actually saw somewhere that it's pretty common for human hands and bear paws to be mixed up or whatever. Like,
I looked at pictures and it's like, it kind of has the same shape as a human hand, but then this part is much longer and, I mean, it is bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that it's not.
I don't think
qualified
Shaq
people
came out here and died and it's his giant hand.
You never know, man.
I think we would know if Shaq went missing. Let alone in a national park.
There are a lot of tall people in the world.
So he shows up and looks at it and right away identifies it as a human hand attached to a forearm. A human arm, not a bear arm. Investigating this with Don is Kim Tucker, who is a National Park Service criminal investigator.
Did he know because it wasn't furry enough?
Yeah. They find a band-aid next to the hand and take note that this arm has clearly been here for some time because it's gone through a freezing and a thawing.
Ugh.
I don't know how you would know that.
Maybe it had, like, frostbite.
I don't know.
God, I hate when food gets
what?
freezer burn.
We're not National Park Service criminal investigators, so.
They were only briefly.
And then we're told about all the horrific things that can happen in a national park because you're in the fucking wilderness. You could fall off a cliff, roll into a crevice or creek, or just straight up get attacked by bears or wolves.
Did you see that story where the people were taking pictures while they were on a hike and they just happened to get a picture of a girl who had fallen and they just saw her hair and she got rescued because of it?
No, I just heard, I think this morning, about some lady who froze to death at a national park.
Jesus. No, thank you.
Or you could just get straight up raped and beaten on a path. Andrew says I need to get out of the house more, and these guys are just not really winning me over with that.
No, I feel like nowhere is safe these days.
So now they want to try and find the rest of this body, but all they really find are animal bones. July 7th, 1983, an anthropologist is looking over the remains and concludes that the victim was a 110-pound female, at least 25 years old. And there's still some skin attached, so they couldn't have been out there for like more than a year or two. And you can't do DNA testing because that didn't exist in 83.
It was the 80s.
None of the local missing persons report match, so they just have to get on phones and call around to different areas.
We're like, hey, you got a missing woman? How old is she? Yeah? About how big is she?
Which is when you run into another problem because California in the 70s and 80s was just chock full of serial killers.
Yeah, and like so many like hippies and transients and like...
So I'm sure the list of missing women was just a long one to sort through.
The number of cults alone.
So many colds. Also in 1983, one-eyed dumbfuck Henry Lee Lucas was arrested, so by the next May in 1984, he's in full confession mode. I think our next one will probably cover the confession killer.
Yes.
It's a long one, though. It is so long.
I had some time between, so I watched it twice.
Well, I got sucked into Manifest, which was a nightmare. Why would you mention it?
I needed someone else to suffer alongside me.
Like, I thought Riverdale was bad. This show is so bad.
Oh, it is terrible. It's like a train wreck.
The Texas Ranger that they interview in this, Phil Ryan, is also in The Confession Killer. He also served as a consultant on Walker, Texas Ranger.
Cool fact.
Don't you love this background info?
Yes.
To sum it up, Lucas was a drifter that confessed to hundreds and hundreds of murders all over the United States. I think even in other countries.
Yeah, he tried to tell the Japanese
he did it, and they were like, okay, well, how did you get to Japan? I drove.
He is dumb as a bag of rocks.
So, yeah, he just does this so he can get special treatment, when in reality, he only has 3 confirmed victims.
He's a dumb fuck.
Still, he's confessed to murdering a woman in mountainous California National Park, so he becomes their first suspect. In fairness, he would have been in California around the time they suspect that the body would have been there, but at the very least, he could have dumped it there. But also, he lies, and California is huge.
Yeah, just so much area to cover. Like, I just...
And where they placed him in California was like 6 hours away, they said.
Which is not like an easy feat. Like,
especially not with a car back in the 80s.
No. And he's not paying for all his gas and shit.
Anyway, the rest of the first episode discusses Lucas and his history, but I don't really want to go into that because we'll cover it all in The Confession Killer. If you really want to learn about him, Last Podcast on the Left has a series. To sum it up, I don't think he's a really good suspect. But to be fair, that is with hindsight.
Right. I would agree with that. I think that he maybe had some he knew things, but I think that's because maybe he was told things.
Yes. And not like purposely told things.
But... Right, but just, casual mentioning.
I will say with these episodes, skip the first 30 seconds because they give a preview of what the episode's going to be about. I hate that shit. Like, I'm watching episode 2, so clearly I'm interested. Why do you need to spoil it?
Yeah, don't tell me what it's all about. Just...
Episode 2, still discussing Henry Lee Lucas. Yay.
Yeah, it's a lot about him.
That just tells me they didn't have enough to pad 4 episodes, so they're really focusing on this asshole.
Which is crazy because when you think about it, like, there really were a lot of potential suspects.
Yeah. August 1984, California has a bunch of cases they are itching to tie Henry Lee Lucas to, so they fly him over. The dude got a free 2-week trip to California.
And all those milkshakes and cigarettes.
Except they don't bring him to Yosemite, so Don and Kim have to meet up with him to see if he's responsible for the Summit Meadow case. Because so many departments want to talk to this guy, they're only given an hour to do so.
They're literally scheduling appointments with him like he's like some kind of world famous doctor.
Yeah. Don described Lucas as looking like a normal 40-year-old guy. Are we talking about the same guy?
He looked so bad. Not to mention that everyone said that he smelled horrible because he never had basic hygiene, didn't brush his fucking teeth.
Like, just pause the podcast, stop whatever you're doing, and look at a picture of this guy if you have no idea what he looks like. He is not a normal looking guy.
No, he looks seedy as fuck.
He looks like a hitchhiker killer. So, shocker, he confesses to the crime. He says he picked up a female hitchhiker near the park, looked to be about 17 or 18, and she willingly had sex with him in the park.
Which
Again, look at a picture of this guy.
Unbelievable in my mind. Like, I don't care who you are. You're not fucking Henry Lee Lucas.
When they're done, he manually strangles her.
Just whatever.
And then carries her body to some brush and just leaves. He insists it was Yosemite, even though he didn't pronounce it correctly, at all.
What do you call it?
Yosemite.
Yeah.
He did it good enough.
The man is pretty fucking stupid.
Like, I think he lost his eye because his mom beat him. And then when the eye was starting to heal, like, a teacher threw a pencil or something at another kid and it somehow hit his eye. And that's how he lost the eye.
I thought he was playing
with
a knife with his brother.
I don't remember what it is, but it was just so stupid.
I thought they said, like, as a child, he lost it, like, playing something, just goofing around with a knife or whatever.
He didn't have a good family life.
No, he really didn't. We'll get into that.
They're not in a huge rush to charge him with the murder because, one, they don't want to destroy visitor numbers by saying a serial killer was operating in the national park.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be a down.
And two, they just don't have enough to say definitively that, yes, he did commit this crime.
Right, there's like no real strong evidence.
They actually have no proof this was even a murder.
No, literally, like, could have just been like someone that died in an accident.
October 1984, Don and Kim decide to go to Texas to interview Lucas again. He draws them a very, and I can't stress enough, very generic map of where the crime had occurred and now adds to his original story.
A little tidbit. Just some little things that he happened to see.
That map was just like a line and kind of curve. I was like, how are you supposed to?
Unless it was like a straight path, like you were pretty much like basic, dead on.
Yeah. Now they had stopped at Summit Meadow to have lunch, which consisted of fried chicken and several beers, and then had sex. Maybe because I'm in my mid-30s, but sex after beer and fried chicken just sounds like the absolute worst idea.
Not to mention, like, I am 99% sure those were warm beers.
Oh, yeah.
And cold fried chicken. Gag.
He then wants to leave, but she doesn't, so he strangles her.
It's just like, I can't leave you here alive. So, I mean, I guess if you would really like this place and you want to stay, like, I'll kill you.
He also mentions that he left trash and her jacket at the scene, and all he remembers about the area was there were signs with numbers in the trees. Don and Kim realize that what he's describing are Nordic ski signs. Don says it so matter-of-factly, like we're all supposed to know what the fuck that is. I looked it up. I could not find, based on that description.
Weird. I mean, I
it was
assumed
like for a ski shop or something, some Etsy store. It was...
I just assumed that they were, I don't know, almost like mile markers for like
yeah,
ski
but
paths.
if you look that up...
And they're high in the trees, so when it snows, they're still visible. I don't fucking know. I've never been skiing.
No. So this is their proof that he's been to the crime scene. They go to where they think the crime occurred based on that extremely generic map he drew, and they spot one of those signs on a tree. They walk another 40 yards and find the trash he described and pieces of a jacket. So it's believed he is the killer. And I want to believe, too, because they found all the things he described after they talked to him, but he's just such a well-known liar. The day after they find all this evidence, Kim is taken off the case. And it wasn't some conspiracy thing where they didn't want this case solved. It was literally over fucking money because they didn't want to have to pay park rangers more for being investigators.
Exactly.
We pay you to be out there writing tickets for littering, not solving murders. Within a year, Don also leaves to join the Department of Fish and Wildlife, so the Summit Meadow case basically goes cold. Hugh Ainsworth was a journalist for the Dallas Times-Herald in the early 80s, and along with his co-worker Jim Henderson, they begin to look into Henry Lee Lucas cases. Check out Hugh Ainsworth's... his fucking name.
Ainsworth.
Check out Hugh Ainsworth Wikipedia page. He has the most interesting journalist career I have ever read. He's claimed to have seen the Kennedy assassination, the capture, arrest, and murder of Lee Harvey Oswald. He helped interview Ted Bundy and co-wrote 2 books about that, and covered the Waco siege.
He's not bad looking either, I mean, honestly.
He is still alive at 91 and apparently still living in Dallas. That's insane.
That is impressive.
Would absolutely love to have a chat with him. So I know I get distracted looking at all these other...
No, he was definitely... He seemed very interesting in the documentary, so...
Hugh was very suspicious about Lucas's claim of having committed hundreds of murders all over the country. It is very suspicious to claim you killed someone and then the next day murdered someone else over 1,700 miles away.
I'm too lazy for that shit, yeah. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Cars in the 70s and 80s.
Highways in the 70s and 80s.
I think the most glaring one we know of is Deborah Jackson. She was murdered 30 miles north of Austin, and he claimed he did it even though there was proof he was in Florida at the time. So
I like how the police are just like, well, that may have just been when we found the body. Doesn't necessarily mean when he killed her. It's like, okay, honey, whatever helps you sleep better.
And I think we've talked about that cop before. He was the one who framed that other guy.
Yes.
Even though the kid was like, no, it wasn't my dad. So you can understand why I would be dubious about him taking credit for the Summit Meadow case. And it doesn't help Don and Kim's case when he also confessed to murders in Yosemite that just didn't exist.
Right, they're like, we don't have any of these bodies.
And I just don't think finding a jacket, empty beer cans, and remnants of foil left in a park, all that suspicious.
No, I feel like those are things that it's a given you might find.
There are unfortunately plenty of asshole litterers. Fuck those people. I literally broke up with a dude because he littered.
I have raised my kids to look down upon people who throw trash out their cars, so...
So, regardless, soon after confessing these hundreds of murders, he recants all of them. Now the focus of the case moves to identifying the victim, and there's renewed hope for that when on May 26, 1988, a couple of fikers. It has been so long. A couple of hikers find a skull, and where the skull is found wasn't anywhere where they had been previously searching. Could not find the exact distance between the two, just that they were on different sides of the same road.
Oh, weird.
Why would you not check on the other side of the road?
How big is
animals?
Yeah. How big is this road?
Animals? No, it's just like a road, like when you're driving into a park.
Exactly, and you didn't search
it's
around
not a
the road.
5-lane highway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And it's not a full skull either. The jaw was missing, but it is enough to be able to try facial reconstruction. Facial reconstruction back then was creepy as fuck. It's just clay with some glassy doll eyes added. I don't like looking at them. And again, the case goes back on the shelf until 1999 when we learn about another serial killer in the area. And it's somebody we discussed in episode 46, Captive Audience Part 2, Cary Stayner. He murdered Carol's son, her daughter Julie, Julie's friend Silvina Peloso, and Yosemite Institute employee Joey Armstrong. And our episode 45 covers Cary's brother Steven's ordeal of being kidnapped by a pedophile and eventual escape. So if you haven't already, check those out. It's an incredible story.
Yeah, I was amazed at how many things tied into this one season.
I think at the time, Cary would have been living in Merced, which would have been hour and a half, 2-hour drive.
Right, it's pretty close. Like, they definitely have a big play on each other.
But that was how big Yosemite is, that he was like working at Yosemite, right? No, he was at that hotel that was right outside Yosemite, and that was still like an hour and a half, 2 hours from where this crime occurred. Crime, quotations, we don't know for sure. He would have been in his early 20s and would later go on to commit murders near and in Yosemite, so just as likely as Lucas.
That's my whole thing, is like the fact that he started killing so late.
But we don't know, because there was that weird thing where his uncle was murdered and that one was unsolved.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there could be more killings attributed to him.
In 2003, I guess the federal government came around to the idea of, hey, maybe we do need to spend the money to have these investigators again in the national parks.
Yeah, because, there's a lot of crime.
Like, no shit, dude. Just FYI, the National Park Service reported 297 million visitors last year. You have to assume there's at least one major crime to investigate during that time. In 2009, they confirmed through DNA that the hand, arm, and skull are from the same person, but there's nothing in the system that matches the DNA. So the new agent of the Investigative Services branch that takes over the case in 2017 is named Cullen Tucker. Last name sound familiar? It's the original investigator Kim's son, which that's adorable.
I was like, that's so cute.
And he is very familiar with this case because he's grown up hearing his mom talk about it for like 30 years. The case is older than him.
Exactly. It's like a family legacy.
The clay skull reconstruction obviously hasn't worked in identifying the victim. However, now we have much better technology for that. They scan the skull and send it in for digital reconstruction, which does make it look more human.
And less terrifying.
But yet again, another standstill until the Golden State Killer is arrested. This introduces Cullen to get in touch with Parabon, who specializes in DNA phenotyping, which helps predicting a person's physical appearance. and also genetic genealogy, which is basically tracking someone through their family's DNA, the family tree. That's the one they used to catch the Golden State Killer.
Which is amazing.
It's how they used to, like, basically catch any cold cases now.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It's, like, the best technology these days.
So, for years, the victim was suspected to be Hispanic. Don't know why they really...
Yeah, just based on, like, a hand.
And it turns out through the phenotyping that, nope, it's someone from European descent. Fair complexion with blue eyes and blonde hair.
Very far from being Hispanic.
But now we finally have an accurate face for this woman. And then they move on to genetic genealogy, where we are introduced to Cece Moore. I say introduced, but at this point, like, I could pick her face out of a lineup. She is the genetic genealogist. She's everywhere.
Yeah, she's pretty famous.
Cece uses the GEDmatch database. Are you on that? I know I am.
I actually haven't done my DNA testing yet.
I have a grandfather that I'm shocked I haven't been contacted for missing or murdered women. He just wasn't a good dude.
Oh, no.
And he was on trains a lot.
I should probably ask for that for Christmas, just so that I can get it over with. I've been putting it off. I gave one to Jason for Christmas, but that, he has...
Do I need to bleep his name? I keep bleeping his name just because he hasn't, like...
Oh, I don't think he cares.
Okay. I'd say his name because he's been on here.
Yeah, no, I don't think he cares.
Okay.
Yeah, and he has the most generic white boy name. Like, every boy in the 80s was named Jason, or Michael, or David.
Yeah. Chris. How did you forget Chris?
Yes, that too. Christopher.
But then I hear soprano. Christopher.
Yeah, no, I got one for Jason,
Chrissy.
But he definitely has more of family offshoots and stuff than I do. Mine are just all like, well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I do have secret relatives I don't know about.
I didn't. It was kind of boring.
Yeah, but I mean, I know that he has, secret siblings. Well, not secret, but,
Secret siblings. You have to say it like that.
Secret siblings.
Shh, they're a secret.
What is it? Stepbrother? No, stepbrother.
No. Cece uses the GEDmatch database, which is a website where people can volunteer to upload their DNA information for law enforcement usage, and finds 3 familial matches to the Summit Meadow victim. Unfortunately, they're so distant to her that Cece has to build a family tree dating back to the early 1700s.
Which is just insane. She's basically just building these people's, like, family trees.
Just to find a close enough relation to be able to match it. She finally narrows it down to a couple that not only has a daughter, but has a daughter that hasn't had any sort of record since 1983.
Oh, that'll be it.
She finds a high school yearbook photo of the daughter, and it matches the phenotype facial reconstruction. January 4th, 2021, which is insane, was not that long ago. Cullen comes back into work after the holiday break to an email with the name of the victim. Finally, after 37 years, they have a name. 29-year-old Patricia Hicks Dahlstrom. Episode 4 starts with us learning more about Patty Dahlstrom and her life. At this point, she only has a surviving sister and nieces and nephews. Cullen starts getting on the phone and calling the family members, and the frustration Cullen must have gone through when no one answers or responds to his voicemails.
Yeah.
It is just like wall after wall.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk.
And finally, he is able to get into contact with someone who recognizes Patty as her aunt, who has been missing for almost 40 years.
Which is just mind-blowing. Like, that is so long.
April of that year, he's finally able to sit down with the family and break the news to them about her death. And then the family drops a serious bomb on Cullen. Patty had ran away to California to join a cult.
As one does. Who doesn't move to California and join a cult?
The last contact her sister has with her is September 1982. They interviewed 2 of her friends that she had grown up, and we learned that she didn't have the best home life.
Can we talk about how many times that man says cute?
Yes.
Like, it's not a cute word for you, my friend.
Like, he either has a ton of daughters or a ton of granddaughters.
I hope so.
Her dad was an alcoholic and her mom was overprotective. I'm not sure what they were insinuating. She had a sister who didn't want to be in this, which I can understand, and a brother named Ed who died when Patty was in high school. She was very affected by his death. She then just kind of drowned herself in religious texts, and soon after graduating high school, she got married.
That sounds...
Don't do that.
Yeah, sounds about right.
After a few years, they got divorced. So she really just seemed to be lost in her life, and that's when she joined up with the cult group led by Donald Gibson. Cullen gets in contact with other members of the cult who are terrified to talk to Cullen about Donald Gibson. And it is hard to find any information about this guy because there's also a musician with the same exact name.
That's helpful. And also the fact that he is just in the wind. Nobody knows where he is.
He tried to pass it off as an Eastern religious group, like they always do. But of course, all the members handed their checks over to him and were put into arranged marriages.
No fun.
There were sex rituals and, of course, selling drugs to kids who Donald then sexually assaulted. So, safe to say, he's a huge piece of shit.
Yeah, it's just like out there selling LSD and shit, just like to children.
Donald's excuse was he needed to take their seed for religious purposes.
Which is the most horrifying excuse I've ever heard.
If that's the case, then I guess I'm super religious. I'm sorry. I had some fun times in my 20s.
I need to take your seed.
All right, it's horrible. Can we just maybe, I don't know, not rape children?
And take their seed.
Just not rape children. December 19th, 1980, the police raid the cult members' houses. They're doing this to arrest Donald. They're trying to arrest him, because of the drugs and the rape. October 2nd, 1981, Donald is found guilty of 2 counts of oral copulation of a minor and 2 counts of sodomy of a minor. And then he's released on bail while they wait for sentencing.
Which, what?
You raped children.
You don't get bail.
So, of course, he goes on the run and has never been found to this day.
Yeah, literally, just, got away with it.
And Carrie Stainer was there during his trial because their families were friends?
This whole case,
how does that...
I was just this woman had the worst luck. Just, everyone was connected.
All these scumbags that she just went through life. So now the theory is Patty would have been there as a witness, so Carrie would have known who she is from that. But yeah, that's all we really learn about this cult. And there is nothing to find about this cult.
Right, but also the cult leader could have killed her just because he needed to silence her or something. I don't know.
Carrie remembers her from this.
Right, and he could know her just from the association. It's there's so many potential.
That one I think is a stretch.
I agree.
Even though we spent way too long on Henry Lee Lucas, the whole cult thing was 20-minute thing.
I know, it was just so crazy. It was a huge part of everything, and what the fuck.
So with Donald gone, Patty has no reason left to stay in Merced, so she heads off towards Yosemite, and that's where the case sits today. And realistically, we don't even know if she was murdered.
No, and I know that they were saying that they were testing for DNA on the beer cans, but I hadn't seen anything come back on that.
Yeah.
So I'm just what the
All
fuck,
they have
man?
is part of her
What a
skull.
tease.
Part of her skull and a hand attached to a forearm. For all we know, it could have been a bear attack. And then trash that just happened to be in the area, which,
Maybe the bear brought it with him.
That's a cool bear.
Couple beers.
But at least she has her name back. Yes, they are testing for DNA on those bear
Bears cans.
The beer cans left at the scene, so I'm sure we'll never hear about that update. And that is the end of our documentary this week. It's crazy.
It is pretty wild.
So, yeah, I guess whenever we get to it, next time will be the confession killer. As long as nobody else gets sick. Because here's the thing, we don't make money on this. So if one of us are sick or one of our kids are sick, obviously that takes priority.
Yeah, we don't really like spreading germs.
No.
Because I know it sucks when my kid's sick. I don't want to, like, put that bad juju on you.
Because that's the shit, is that my kids get sick, and then it just keeps going back and forth.
Yeah.
Until one of us loses our minds and kills our family. But, you know.
That day hasn't come yet.
Not yet, but Christmas is getting crazy. Mommy's losing her mind. I'm not going to hurt my kids. Kat's not going to hurt her kids. It's a joke.
They're safe for now.
I like TV too much to go to prison. Is that a thing?
I have performance anxiety, so I would never be able to, like, use the bathroom or shower around others. So that's my motivation to stay out of prison. Although I do think about how jacked I would get. Like, I would be so in shape if I had time where all I did was, like...
Because that's the thing. All you have is time.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have that, mommy.
Shitty food. I'd be working out all the time.
I would just sleep.
Yeah.
Catch up on all those years of missed sleep.
That would be pretty nice. Okay, you know what? Honestly, prison's not sounding so bad right now.
We could just read books.
Silence. Have, like, a strict bedtime. I don't have to.
Okay, all right, snap out of it. Back to reality.
We'll be back.
Hopefully.
For sure.
Thank you for listening. Eventually, yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Doc to Me. The opening music is by Twisterium. For comments or suggestions, we can be reached by email at doctomepod@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at doctomepod and find a link to our Facebook group in the show notes. Thank you.